Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Councillor John Cook. I'm Chair of the Scrutiny Committee, and the time is just after 10 o'clock, and it's Tuesday the 7th of July, and the first thing we need to do is take apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from councillors Jamie Driscoll, Mike Smith and Philip Brown. If I could just add to that, Councillor Nick Hartley is here today as a substitute for Councillor Driscoll, and we have Councillor Wildhurt here as a substitute for Councillor Smith.
And that, in that regards, we are quorate today?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. In that case, I'll move on to declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations to make for interests in regards to items on the agenda today? Super, no declarations of interest. Item 3 is the minutes of the meeting, which was held on the 10th of February 2026, and to receive the notes of the meeting of members of the committee held on the 20th of March 2026, where there were insufficient members to hold a quorum meeting. If there was anybody there on that occasion, a couple of yous were, are you able to agree those minutes? Thank you very much. Minutes agreed. Okay, item 4 on the agenda is the appointment of the Vice Chair. Does any nominations wish to be put forward? I have had 2 emailed in to me. I've got Councillor Dawn Welsh and Councillor Stephen Boron. Does anyone want to second Councillor Welsh? Can anyone second Councillor Boron? Seconded. Thank you very much. In that case, I will move to a vote if there was no third nominations. Can I have a show of hands in favour of Councillor Welsh?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Chair.
And can I have a vote for Councillor Boron? Take a vote as well.
That's only 1, 2, Chair.
Apologies, Stephen. Councillor Dawn Welsh is elected. Thank you very much. Item 5 on the agenda is delivering for the North East the annual performance report, and we have here today Mayor Kim McGuinness and Henry Kippen, Chief Executive, who will present the slides on the display behind me and present the report. So over to yourselves, and I think we at the front here will move out your way so everyone can see the screen.
You don't need to move while I'm speaking because I'm not going to go through any slides, but I'll hand over to Henry in just a moment. That's horrible, isn't it? Shall I try again? It's a little bit better. Lovely. It's called Delivering for the North East, and that is exactly what we want to do. So this is a region that is ambitious, extremely proud, and we're not slowing down. It's a big day for the region today, actually, as we launch a consultation on bus reform. Our buses are in desperate need of improvement. Whether you're in a rural area or whether you're in an urban area, the buses for too long have been cut and cut and cut, and the prices that the bus companies are in control of continue to rise. Reliability is just not where it needs to be, and people are left waiting, unable to get to hospital appointments, unable to rely on the bus as a mechanism to go to work. And so I've been really clear that I want our buses back under public control, but that is a decision that we have to take as part of a wider process. And where we've hit today is the point in that process where the public get to have their say. And what we don't do here is shove a survey online for 6 weeks and just hope for the best, or shove a survey online for 6 weeks and do what we wanted to do anyway. we have a proper conversation with the public. And so over the coming weeks, people will be invited to take part in person. They'll be invited to take part through things going through their door and literally saying to them, you can get in touch with us in all of these different ways. People will be going door to door, as well as the survey that will take place online. And the point of that is we want to collect a cross-section of views right across the region, whether people are living in the depths of the rural areas, places where there simply isn't a bus service at the moment at all, right through to the urban core of Newcastle, Gateshead, Sunderland, Durham. We need to hear people's views from right across the region. And from that point, we'll know what to do to proceed. But I know we're here for scrutiny, but I wouldn't be me if I didn't come with an ask. Share it, get it out there, because whatever you think we should do next, the public deserve to have their say. And this is essentially what we're espousing in the region, more control handed directly to the public. I think we're on the brink of change in national government, which will see more powers handed to the region. And when we're already delivering, creating new jobs, supporting young people into work, helping to upskill the region, getting houses built, helping children who are growing up in poverty, saving people money on bus fares, it's clear that the delivery that we've started deserves to be built. The pace we're set, I don't think, can be halted. I think that this is a region where everybody who lives here is incredibly proud. I think it's the best place in the world, and I think we're making great strides in supporting people in their day-to-day lives, and I don't see any sense in slowing down. I know Henry's got slides that will go through the detail of the performance report, but some things to draw out. We're moving forward with Gateshead Quays. We're moving forward with Crown Works. We've talked a little bit already about the buses. We've talked about child poverty. There's an awful lot more that we've done and an awful lot more still to do. So I'll hand over to Henry and then we're happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Thanks, Chair. Can everybody hear me okay? Am I on?
Your microphone, yours is all
Yeah,
right.
I'm on, okay. Yeah, mine's, sounds good from here anyway. Morning, everybody. So I'm going to do some slides. This might be the opportunity to move to, there's 2 seats here, if that helps. And I'll go through a few slides that will illustrate some of the detail underneath those commitments to the region that the Mayor has just made. And as you'll see from the performance report in your pack, the idea here is to have a conversation about what's in the report, what it means, what it's for, but also should help you to think about the topics, the things that you as a scrutiny committee want to dig into over the next 12 months. That's part of the point of today. So not all of it has to be gone through and examined now. It's partly about setting the agenda for you alongside the Chair and Michael too. Next slide, please. Or can I do? I can do them. All right, I don't have to do next slide, please. Or maybe I do. Turns out I was pressing the wrong button. Okay, so by way of introduction, you all know this, you're all part of this combined authority, this strategic authority as is now called already, but just by way of a reminder, this is about the whole of the North East region across 7 local authorities from Barnard Castle in the south all the way up to the Scottish border. That is a huge area, and as the Mayor's just said, covers city, coast, countryside. There are parts of the region that are deeply urban with all of the challenges and opportunities that brings. There are parts of our region where there are more sheep than people, and I think that's what makes it beautiful and brilliant. And you'll see in the programmes and the policies and the interventions that we are making, you'll see a real spread that cover those things, because that is what our economy needs. Some of the basics on what we are. So we were established in May 2024. That wasn't the region's first go at devolution, but it certainly has been the fullest and most successful and brings the region together. Our cabinet is led by Kim, and that is made up of a cross-party mix of 7 local authority leaders that obviously changed in the local elections recently, as did the makeup of this scrutiny committee. So that won't surprise you. What we are built on is something called a devolution deal, which contains within it, we would say, a starting point. And certainly when the Mayor's talking to me about this, she'll say, well, the devolution deal, that's great, but actually we really want to go much further and faster. And so the whole point of what I'm about to walk through is taking that deal agreed with government that's about growth and prosperity in the region over 30 years and going much further and faster in the areas that I'm just about to talk through. And we do that through, already in the 2 years, as you'll see, a good track record of delivery, a good track record of working well and having an organisation that is coherent and that is well run. And actually, it's one thing me saying that, But if you look at our audit performance, if you look at the way government has assessed what we are in relation to the integrated settlement, we are being told by our peers and by central government that we're doing this well. And I think that's really, really important, the spending of public money well as the ambition. So all of that, as you can imagine, I'll go through some slides on that give examples of what we are doing and what we're about to do, but that is all underpinned, as you would hope, by evidence, by robust plans. As the Mayor's just talked about, we're really keen to make sure that we have proper consultation and engagement sitting underneath everything that we do. We'd like to think that is more than the standard. You know, in the public sector, we've traditionally been pretty good at calling a consultation, not really meaning it, and then doing the same thing anyway. Well, that's absolutely not where we are, and that's not what we have done. So you'll see in the transport plan, in the child poverty reduction plan that the Mayor's championed, and in the corporate plan, and of course our growth plan, which is so fundamental to everything that we do, a really good quality set of engagement and evidence base, and you'll see those things linked by 5 missions, which are then going to govern what I'm just about to talk about. So there are 5 missions that read through everything that we do. They're like a, what do you call it, the golden thread, or the words in a stick of rock. They are home of real opportunity, a northeast we're proud to call home, home to a growing and vibrant economy for all, home of the green energy revolution, and a welcoming home to global trade. So I'll talk a bit about what they mean, but the importance is that you pick missions, you stick to them, you mean it, and everything you do is driven by them. And that has been a real cross-party endeavour to make decisions collectively. And indeed, every decision that you'll see reflected here has been made collectively and across parties, to play that all across everything that we do. So if I come to the first, home of real opportunity, you'll see this within the corporate plan. I won't go through. Mercifully, I won't do every bullet point. Honestly, would be here until lunchtime if I did, even on slides 1 or 2, but just a few snapshots of what we have done. And you'll see this set out in the corporate plan, which is good, it's visual, it I think does a good job of communicating that. We've done some really significant things in the first 2 years in unlocking opportunity for people. So this portfolio, if you like, is about skills, it's about education, it's about inclusion, human capital, the people-based things that are so important to any model of growth, and particularly in a part of the world like this, where we know that human well-being and economic growth are 2 sides of the same coin. So you'll see the country's first child poverty reduction unit established with some serious investment put behind that. I know the Mayor might want to come back to some of that in the Q&A, but that is not just policy, that is real interventions supporting families, supporting young people, supporting people at point of birth, actually. So thinking about this as cradle all the way up to adult education is really important to us. Our Opportunity Fund is an opportunity for very local community-based organisations to benefit from combined authority investment. We're not telling them what to invest in. This is about them coming to us and saying, here's how we could benefit our community. And then a huge chunk of statutory but incredibly important activity in devolved skills. So we as an authority, how do we put this properly, commission adult education within the North East, within our patch. That is a formal role that we have. So if you are 19 or over and you are benefiting from adult education of the type that you saw out in the foyer here in the City Council, that is commissioned by us as a combined authority. That is a multi-million endeavour. Skills boot camps are about getting people into work quicker and doing that really effectively, and then increasingly employment support, those that need more support to get into work because they have health issues or because they haven't worked in a long time. That is a huge part of what we are doing, and increasingly we'll do more of in the coming months and years. So that's, you'll see numbers behind all of that. We've got a good track record already. We can and will do more. So the next phase of the child poverty work will be coming through. We have a Child Poverty Summit, the second of ours, on Thursday this week, isn't it? Yeah, it was really successful first time around. We had hundreds of organisations being convened, and that's a huge part, as you'll see, you'll know already. Convening is such a huge part of what we do. We're not here to do everything. We're not here to replicate what you do as local authorities. We're here to add value, convene, do more than the sum of the parts. So you'll see lots of examples of that coming through here in adult skills, the commissioning of the next 3-year programme, and in increasing coverage of things that we know matter so much to people, but previously have just been quite dysfunctional, like career support. I mean, who thinks that career support either worked for them or has worked well in the round? I would imagine almost none of us. So it's up to us as a region to get around that and start doing that work better, and making sure where we've got sectors that are growing, construction being an example here, but we'll talk about more we've got a skills offer that is direct and that we can roll in and support people really, really quickly. So that's the long and the short of what you've seen in these two slides. Hopefully that makes some sense. The second portfolio I'll talk through is a North East we're proud to call home, which is about place, really, the pride in place. It's about housing, it's about land, it's about transport, the things that really make the region tick. And you'll see, by the way, just as an aside, these portfolios are quite deliberately cross-sector, so they're not skills, housing, transport. They're actually constructed so that we work in the gaps, which is where you get all the value, really, isn't it? We always talk about working outside of our silos and reflecting people's lives and places rather than our administration as an authority. That's what we're trying to do here. Nonetheless, you'll see lots of things that are very, very specific, and hopefully you'll have felt the benefit of, and friends and family will too. So lots of work to make sure transport is affordable, metro fares, bus fares. I know the Mayor will want to come back on how important that is, making sure we continue that in the future. We've done lots of work to make sure our transport plans are delivered in the region. So in the urban core, that will obviously involve the metro, but that also involves things like Stanley Bus Station, making sure we've got rural routes that are sustainable. And as Kim's just said, bus reform is a huge part of that, making sure we can take more control over that system in future. But, you know, we could have 5 slides on transport delivery. It's such a huge part of what we do and such a lot of investment going in, which I have to say is maxed and multiplied at least tenfold by the fact that this combined authority exists. So actually, you know, why we sat around the table is so we can leverage this huge investment in our transport network in a way that is really clear and really deliberate. And what comes next is a lot more of the same. So we've got huge plans around metro extensions. We've got plans around the rural bus network. We've got plans to make sure that we have good, what's called active travel, but cycling and walking, and that people feel included in that. We've also got huge plans around place and spatial strategy and housing. So you'll see lots of activity over the next 2 years that is basically about getting more homes delivered. Now that is a mixture of things as a combined authority. It's partly about having the funding to help to get schemes away quicker. So the things that are on the stocks for you as local authorities that are maybe not quite viable, or where there's a load of nasties in the ground that we need to get rid of and remediate before we can get houses built. It is our job to support quicker progress in those areas. Increasingly, that's through an increasing, basket of funding streams to do that. It's never straightforward. It's never as straightforward as we'd like. We'd love to have one single fund for all of this that we roll out, but that is not the world we're in. But increasingly, we will be doing that along the guidelines of a spatial strategy for the entire region, which will be done with you as local authorities, reflecting local plans, but meaning that we can make 30-year commitments to developers. And actually, that's what's going to get things built quicker, because we can give more long-term certainty. And alongside that, as you would expect, we're building new communities, we're supporting the development of new places. You obviously need to connect them, so the investment in and delivery of transport is hand in glove with all of that. Then we come to home of a growing and vibrant economy for all, which is really about the economic health of the region. It's about our business base, about business growth. It is also about culture, creativity and innovation, all the things that sometimes feel intangible but are so much a part of what we are, whether that's because we're proud of the culture of the region and want that reflected in the way we live and work, or because literally industries like the creative industries and culture and new industries like AI, which I'm sure we'll come to, are increasingly starting to drive what we do. So you'll see here really great examples of supporting events, making sure we get really big national events here in the region. It's totally important. So we are lifting our heads up and saying, why should this always be in a field in Surrey or outside London? We can get the big weekend, we can get the Mobos, the Mercury Prize, Women's Rugby World Cup, the Euros to come. They're all great examples of bringing things into the region through some of the funding and support that we've delivered that wouldn't have happened otherwise. We've got great creative sector investments here, Centre for Writing, Quayside Recording Studios, Blythe Cultural Hub are just 3, but we could have talked about Sunderland and Durham and South Tyneside just as much. Developing our visitor economy presence, if you like. So we've transitioned an organisation that used to be called Newcastle Gateshead Initiative into Experience North East England, which will serve the whole of the region and really promote our tourism ambitions. And then as you come to the end of the bullet points here, you can see that we are trying to do that in a really place-based way. So the establishment of 3 of what we've called mayoral development zones in the Newcastle Gateshead urban core, on Sunderland Riverside and in Durham city centre are really an acknowledgement that in order to move things forward within those city centre environments, you need such a lot of cross-sector and activity and indeed collaboration in no small part between local authorities. If you think about the River Tyne, that is a huge collaboration between Gateshead and Newcastle, and inevitably will be. And we're doing all that caring about procurement and how our businesses and the people we're supporting behave and act. So the SHINE programme, which colleagues can say more about if needed, is about making sure that we support good employment, so people treat their staff well, so we are confident that, for example, if we are letting out a great big transport contract, that we've got organisations delivering that are going to contribute to the social value of the region too. What's next? A lot more of that. You'll see big things happen. I mean, opposite, because we've got the World Cup going on around us. I think we're all still slightly half asleep after staying up all night on Sunday to watch the England game, but we've got the Euros coming in quick time. That's 2028. It's going to be fantastic, isn't it? We've also got, and this slide illustrates the big and the small. So some really big things that you can see from space. Literally, the Mayor talked about Gateshead Quays. We're talking about the Euros there. But also, Small Venues Fund, making sure we're lowering the barriers to access for people to experience culture every day. Business support framework, that is about micro and small businesses and them getting support to start up and scale and working with you as local authorities on that. And then support for innovation. That's a huge, I mean, we bandy that word around all the time, don't we? And it's one of those where you sometimes it's hard to know what it means, but ultimately innovation in this region is going to have to be about new ways of trading, new ways of working, supporting our businesses to do more and be more productive, but also translate the brilliant research and development coming out of our education institutions, like the universities here in this city, Sunderland, Durham, into economic activity. So there's a lot in there. That is a big, wide portfolio, and I've skipped the surface, but hopefully you get the idea. And the next portfolio or mission area is home of the green energy revolution. We are really convinced, because the evidence is extremely clear about the link between transition and energy transition and security for the country and where that next generation of jobs are going to come from. So I think 25 years ago we could have sat here and talked about wind turbines and the supply chain and how many jobs that might create. It's quite a long way in the distance. Now it isn't. So you will have seen recently, particularly with the leasing of more of the North Sea seabed, the opportunity for us, given the engineering, the manufacturing base in the region. You know, we've got everything from SMD to Technip to Nissan to all of the organisations in NetPark and CPI in terms of those innovation in materials to really max out on that opportunity. So whatever your view about the right energy mix is for the UK and for the world, indeed, if we're going to transition, which we are, we're going to make sure that this region is going to maximise and get the best of that. And absolutely fundamental to that is the skills to do it. So there are investments in Blythe, on the River Tyne, and in Sunderland near Nissan that are specific, that we've made in the last 3 years, that are all about rapid skilling up and working with people from age 14 up, because it's too late by the time you get into college and university, to make sure people are both aware of the opportunities but also have the right skills to take advantage. And you'll start to see that playing out in relation to some of our housing and transport work, where new materials, new ways of doing things are so fundamental. And again, what's next? More of the same, more and multiply, if you like. So the fact that we are now in a position where we have an integrated settlement, and we are one of 4 or 5, is it, say, mayoral strategic authorities that are benefiting first from the new powers and funding that are being delivered, means we should be at the front of the queue for things that haven't yet arrived but we know that we need. For example, at-scale funding to support retrofit in the region, making sure we've got the right infrastructure to support people who are buying electric vehicles and that will help with our transport network too, and making sure that we can do that in a way that supports families really directly. So again, this is about making sure that people can afford to live well and have good lives and homes that they can then use as a well, just to be productive part of society, right? And that's the whole 9 yards. Okay, so hopefully that makes good sense and locates the green energy revolution in that wider economic journey for the region. And then finally, for these missions, is a welcoming home to global trade, which is probably the most run seal of all of them. We want to be a region that is very good at landing inward investment at scale, and traditionally we have been. We also know that that doesn't happen by accident, particularly for a region like the North East. Historically, we have been slow to recover from. We've been slow to recover from recessions in the past, haven't we? If you think about that, in the 70s, the 80s, the financial crisis, we know that we need much more proactive work to make sure we are going out to the right markets to land the investments that we want. The Mayor's been on trade missions to do that, particularly to Japan, which is so key to us. If you think about Komatsu and Nissan and Hitachi in the region, and we know that having a national and international presence for the North East that is essentially saying we're here now, we're here to do business, and we want to punch our weight as a region. And if you want to invest anywhere in the UK, this is the place to do it. That is a huge, huge swathe of activity that will only increase over the coming months and years. And we've actually put good money behind that. So North East Fund is an example of that, which is about investment in business growth. So if you're coming here, you will see support for cluster development. You'll see a single front door, whereas we used to be quite a fragmented system. That is hugely important. And there's a couple of things coming both later this year and for the next 2 or 3 years. The Mayor will want to talk about Great North, I think, a bit, which is a really great example of the North East, and Kim in particular, saying we are going to be at the centre of things that happen across the wider North, which hasn't happened historically, and we're absolutely starting to see. And then you'll see things coming through at scale to support that kind of business growth and development that I've just talked about. Making sure we do that in collaboration, because inevitably everything lands in a place, doesn't it? Whether it's landing a great big manufacturing base at Net Park in Durham, or the data centre in Camas and near Blythe, we will work really collaboratively with our local authorities, because we know that it takes. We never do anything on our own. We're always working in collaboration, and really that's how the whole thing is supposed to work. So I'll finish by just giving a snapshot. You can see this in the papers. You'll see that in the report. These are all snapshot statistics that, because we've all got tiny attention spans these days, we can't cope with more than one picture with one number on it. But you can see here some really meaningful things, whether that is people that have had access to skills programs that wouldn't have already, whether that is people who've been economically inactive for a long time and are suddenly starting to get into even the pre-work that gets you into a course and into a job down the line, and some really immediate things like bums on seats in new jobs through inward investment and business growth and new homes delivered, which you'll see increasingly over the next 2 years. So I won't labour the point. There's a lot there. There's big strategy. There's on-the-ground delivery. We're going to need more of both, and we're going to be, as the Mayor said, incredibly aggressive about how quick we move in the region, and doing that as a really great big collaboration, as we should. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Henry. Excellent presentation, and the full information was provided in the pack. We did have some pre-meeting members raise some following lines of inquiry, which I hope have been passed over to you. Rather than reading them out, I was hoping you might be able to respond without me reading them to you verbatim. There are some additional questions we had put through before I open it up to questions on the floor.
Okay, yeah, I can try. So some things that came through in inquiry, some I think have been answered through the presentation, but give me a shout if you think that they haven't been. So progress on the Child Poverty Action Plan, I think that comes through quite clearly in the presentation. Over 2,000 families, over 3,000 families have now benefited from the Child Poverty Action Plan. The number of baby boxes on there is now up to around 3,000, and the acceleration and delivery of those is massive. I did a visit to Gateshead, to a family hub, to Deckham Family Hub in Gateshead the week before last, and it was just incredible to meet parents who had received these baby boxes. And the testimony that really sat with me was one mum who, she was really struggling financially. She'd had a traumatic birth, suffered PTSD as a direct result of that, and postnatal depression. And she said, I received this box, I wasn't expecting it. And she said, I feel seen, and I feel like someone cares about me and my baby. And so those are really transformational. The pilot of the childcare grant is now up and running and supporting around 30 families with expected growth in that. We've supported a huge number of families to receive help on things like debt, on things like benefits, on back to work support. And of course, there's the Mayor's Fares, which have now created around a £70 million saving for families and for households across the North East as a direct result, including things like Kids Go Free during school holidays. And the government has stepped in and done more on that, but it's been really beneficial to support families at a time when they just don't have at a time when it's really expensive to get through the school holidays. As well as that, we've now got our region of sport activity centres up and running with the foundations, which means that thousands of children from across the region are getting activities all the way through the school holidays, including food and access to all of that, which is absolutely brilliant for them, because not only is that supportive of their families, but it creates opportunity as well and gives them the chance to take part in sport and physical activity all the way through all of the school holidays. So that's a bit of a rundown of the Child Poverty Action Plan. I think the other thing that it's important to mention on the Child Poverty Action Plan is it's been nationally recognised as good practice. So some of the things that we put in the action plan, we never even got to publishing because government picked them up and did them nationally first. So, for example, the lifting of the threshold for free school meals up to universal credit. We were going to do that. We didn't need to because it's been picked up by government, increasing things like breakfast clubs. Lifting the two-child benefit cap as a direct result of lobbying by us and various other people because of the evidence that we were able to provide. And then quickly I'll just flow into what the MSA's definition of child poverty is. It's quite technical the way we do this. We don't take a single definition. We've worked with the North East Child Poverty Commission, who are absolutely experts in this, in assessing who and why people find themselves in poverty and creating a measure that is very North East specific. I don't know, Henry, whether you want to say more on that?
To be honest, if this is okay with the committee, we've got chapter and verse in the report that I put out on the screen. We'll be happy to share that. That's all very public. It's
an exhaustive measure that looks at a whole range of different factors rather than just simply saying absolute poverty or one of those measures. We've looked for a definition that suits specifically the North East and can be influenced. So I'll pause there because the child poverty questions, Chair, and I don't know whether anybody wants to follow up on any of those.
Yeah, I'll check round. Go ahead.
Your presentation has been very good indeed, and you're doing a lot of great work dealing with the symptoms. The cause really is a lack of industry. It's a lack of jobs. Nothing gets people out of poverty quicker than having a good, well-paid job that they can rely on, So I would ask you if you could put some more effort towards getting people jobs and into work, better for the country. And also, Kim, if I could ask you when Andy Burnham comes in to number 10, could you have a word with him and ask him to dual carriageway the A1 all the way up through Northumberland, because it'll help everybody and it'll help what you're doing. Thank you.
I think you can see through, again, the presentation, the extreme effort that is going to integrating jobs, whether that be through trying to attract inward investment, a very ambitious growth plan that puts an investment prospectus out there to say this is what we're about, right through to supporting small, medium-sized businesses that are founded in the North East, in helping them to grow and giving them the support that they need, as well as an increasing amount of work on high streets and more to come as well. So I completely agree that we do need to create more jobs, but I think even more importantly than that, help people to get into them. So the trailblazer work that we've got going on here, which is now helped thousands of people when it comes to tackling the barriers between physical and mental health, upskilling people through those boot camps. The success rate of those is really high. And so trying to support people to take those next steps. And again, things like the childcare grant. There's a really good now programme of free childcare through government for a huge amount of families. But what it doesn't look at is things like out-of-hours childcare. It doesn't look at things like the gaps that people fall through. And we know that a large number of people, majoritively mums, are either underemployed or want to be doing more as a result. And so things like that are all about supporting people back into work. And the child poverty reduction the Child Poverty Action Plan, which you can see there, is broken into sections. Yes, alleviating the poverty that people experience, that's really important. Breaking down the barriers between poverty and opportunity. So that's things like early careers in schools, showing young people as young as 6 what the scale of the opportunity is for them, and then helping them to access those opportunities by breaking down those barriers, and then tackling the causes of poverty, which again goes back to things like work and housing and all of those things. So yeah, I absolutely take your point, and you'll not find a bigger advocate than me for dual in the A1. And he knows exactly where I'm at. We've written to him already, and alongside Glenn and cross-party across the North East, we will campaign for it, because not only is it good for economic growth in the region, I think the road has become a national embarrassment, to be quite honest with you, and also the safety record is terrible, and it's getting worse. So yeah, thank you. I think there was another hand along here.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, first of all?
If I could just say, I've only been in the North East for 23 years, but you know, the best and the brightest tend to have to move away to make their fortune.
I think they did. I don't think they do anymore. And I think that that's the thing that we're really clear on. If you've got skills and you want to do it, you should be able to do it here.
You need to have the jobs here.
Yeah, and there are
that comes first,
there are a growing number of really great jobs and businesses established in the North East, and I don't think it is true any longer that you have to move away. I think that was true for a lot of people who were my peers when I was growing up. I think it's very different now. But we have to show young people, if they can see it, they can be it. And I know that that is extraordinarily cheesy, but I also think it's totally true.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillor Welch.
Is the microphone working? Excellent. Hi, I just wanted to pick up on the green industrial revolution, and I use that phrase specifically because it is an industrial revolution. And I think people get a bit confused between the reality of the industrial revolution that we're in and the phrase net zero. Net zero perhaps doesn't mean as much to them. And just to put it into context, last year there was $3.3 trillion invested globally in the energy sector. 2.2 trillion of that went into clean energy technologies, including renewables, grid storage, electrification, low carbon fuels, which is twice the amount invested in oil, gas and coal combined. So that kind of gives the scale of it. It's recognised that the North East is one of the best placed regions to capitalise on these high growth markets through offshore wind, carbon capture, hydrogen, etc. So it's a once in a generation opportunity for us to replace the lost industries of coal mine and shipbuild and steel making. Yeah. Now, professionally, I've been involved in the development of high growth clean tech markets for over 2 decades, and I currently structure multi-million pound 20-year investment deals with private sector clients.
I think we need to give Dawn a job.
Now, what I'm painfully aware of is just how globally mobile opportunities of this scale can be. Investment can just as easily flow to Scotland, the Humber, mainland Europe, North America, if investors perceive policy instability. Yeah. So my questions to you are threefold. Do you agree that policy certainty is now an economic necessity for the North East and not an environmental preference? Has the authority undertaken any assessment of how public opposition to, say, renewable energy deployment, or how a political retreat from a commitment to the net zero agenda could negatively impact investor confidence, inward investment, and ultimately the loss of good quality employment and opportunities for future generations, which feeds directly into Councillor Fowler's previous point? And what assurances can you provide that this region will continue to present a stable, investable environment?
I think you've answered some of your own questions, Dawn, to be quite honest with you, but yeah, policy certainty is absolutely necessary. This is not a choice about the future. This is a series of decisions that are about the present. Oh, yeah, 25,000 people work in renewables and in green jobs in the region at the moment. That's everything from offshore wind, battery technology, building cars at Nissan, which are now predominantly battery operated, things like hydrogen and other things that you have mentioned, 25,000 jobs. And what I never want us to get into is a culture war about what are real jobs. It is dangerous, it is destructive, it will put investors off, and it is not what our young people want, and that is really critical. We've now held a series of green energy roadshows around the region, and they are absolutely jam-packed with ambitious young people who are coming because they see this as their future. They know. Now, I am not saying that we should disinvest entirely from all of the oil and gas that is operated from along the Tyne and off our shores. It's an important part of our energy mix, and the transition is the key bit of it. We have to be able to transition. But transition we will, because it will run out. It is as simple as that. There is no two ways about it. It will run out. And we can't look at that opportunity that is there for renewable energy, energy security, and frankly, jobs. We can't look at that and turn our back on it, because that would be an incredible disservice to the young people growing up in this region. So policy certainty is absolutely critical. We're working with Lloyds Bank on a whole range of things, including looking at that assessment about, public interest and the public benefit of doing this. But I don't think that we need the study. We know for a fact that this is absolutely our future, and the region's really well equipped to do it. This is the only region in this country that can do everything from the research and the development in the universities and at the Catalyst, which is down at the Port of Blythe, right through to the servicing of offshore wind. And that's just the offshore wind industry. That's before you get into things like hydrogen and other types of clean energy, and the manufacturing opportunities that come around things like battery technology. And we're filling in gaps in our supply chain all the time and creating jobs in doing it, investing in those skills. And then I think assurances, you can have absolute categorical assurance that as long as I sit in this seat, we are committed to this, because I will not turn our backs on the 25,000 jobs that are there now and the potential for at least 25,000 more. We've just had an offshore wind leasing round secured through the Crown Estate. That is worth around 5,000 jobs for this region, and it makes complete sense. They've come to us first because the scale of the industry here is a better opportunity than it is, for example, on the north coast of Scotland or somewhere else in this country. And that, for us, shows that the industry has real confidence in our ability to deliver this. So yeah, as long as I'm in this seat, you've got real assurance from me that it will be a stable policy position, that we will lean into the green energy opportunity. And as I said, we cannot let it slip away or slip through our fingers because of a ridiculous culture war around net zero. It is one of the benefits of green energy, along with energy security, along with thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Does that answer the question you've put, do you think?
It has, and I welcome the Mayor's commitment, and I'm sure investors in the North East will welcome that commitment as well.
Thank you. I've got some hands up now. Got some interest. Right, so I can't see everybody's names yet, and I don't know everybody by face.
Richard, Andy, Steve, Nick and Stephen. I can see them.
Councillor Hartley, your hand was up first, so I'll bring you in.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Kim, and absolutely second what you were saying there about the importance of securing and strengthening our support for clean energy. Really opportunities there, and also really second what you were saying about the importance of good consultation.
Yes.
We've seen challenges in Newcastle about consultation not being done well. I think that's changing. We've got a commitment from the new administration to do exactly that, and in the big conversation that's being put before full council in Newcastle next week. I think there's some interesting examples there about how we can go out into the communities and hear from people that we wouldn't normally hear from. I hope that's exactly what you're doing in the consultation around bus reform, and I look forward to taking part in that myself and absolutely support getting buses back into public hands. My questions, well, a couple of questions. One is about just looking at the corporate plan and the performance report. The headline outcomes in there, it would be great if next time around we could have KPIs that are smart, that actually are more specific. And there's some examples there in the report, but you were saying there about how the government are saying, look, when compared to the integrated settlement, you're doing well. It'd be good to see clear examples of that in the report. So if that could be there next time, that would be really appreciated. And then I'd like to dig in a bit more about the work of the High Street Commission.
Yeah.
Something that's close to my heart in my ward in Byker, because we've seen some of the benefits of the High Street's work over the last couple of years with your support, and I know that's gone down really well with residents, with events and changes to underpasses to make them safer and more attractive to get to Shields Road. One of my questions I have is, we've now got this Pride in Place programme from the Labour government, this £20 million over 10 years that's going to specific wards in specific constituencies. And I'm wondering if that shifts some of your decision making about how you invest in high streets. So worried that Pride in Place could distract from the work that's going on, and so I'd be interested to hear how that's changing some of your thinking around that, as well as hearing about what you've seen so far from the High Streets work you have been doing, talking about the benefits of that, but any missed opportunities so far and lessons learned would be really, really helpful to hear.
Absolutely. So do you want me to take them one by one, or do you want to take a couple of questions and we go back?
Do that one at a time, because that was
Yep.
I had a few aspects to it. and
Yeah,
it would
no
be
problem. That's
easier
fine.
to do it.
Yeah, we'll take the feedback on the performance report, and I'll just say we'll take that feedback and have a look at doing it on high streets, and on consultation. I honestly think the whole point in these roles is that the whole point in having a mayor and having more power devolved is exactly that you are big enough to be strategic across a regional footprint, but local enough that you can get out and actually understand what people want and need. And so the bus consultation, but it's not just the bus consultation. We're now doing a mayor meets event at least once a month, if not more than that. You know, going to different places to listen to different perspectives, trying really, really hard to get past the sort of self-selection and the usual suspects and the usual voices, and understand how people really feel on the ground. We did one a few weeks ago in Whitley Bay, which was all about women's safety, and it was just completely enlightening. You know, even as a woman who travels around on my own in this region all the time, it was completely enlightening to me to listen to the measures that women want to take. And we will put those things into direct action, and that's the power that we've got available to us, to be able to react like that. And so when we say a consultation or a conversation, we really mean it. I absolutely fundamentally believe that is how we should be doing it. You know, the power isn't coming to me, it comes to the people. And that, I think that's really critical. High streets, there's loads of learning, honestly there is. So I suppose the jewel in the crown at the moment on high street regeneration is the relocation of South Tyneside College onto the high street. Now, that will and already is making a huge difference. It will improve the appearance, it will bring more retail, it is already bringing more housing and more investment. Plus, it's more convenient for students with access to public transport links and all of that. And that's the kind of big thinking that we want. And I'm going to be honest that the High Streets Commission, for me, has been quite an iterative process, and probably as a result it hasn't moved as quickly as either I would like or other people would like, because I'm more interested in getting it right than doing some quick wins or low-hanging fruit. And I think we probably could have done that. You know, we could have gone to a couple of rundown places and, you know, put a bit of investment into a couple of shops or looked at street furniture and all of those things. But I think we've seen that all done before by various rounds of central government funding for high streets that have just not really scratched the surface. Whereas what we want to do is test some really big ideas around things like housing relocation, you know, high street redesign, stuff around safety. I am absolutely struck by the fact that particularly in some of our shopping precincts, you've got absentee landlords who don't even live in this country, who are rinsing local businesses, leaving precincts empty and unkempt and unlooked at, unloved and insecure and unsafe. And I think we need to be doing something about that. So we had some really good initial findings from the High Streets Commission. I'll go back to the Pride and Place thing in a minute. But we've actually gone away and said, bigger. Let's think bigger. Let's look at what more we can do. And so we're getting stuck into that over the coming weeks and looking at how we can really make proper changes in probably a smaller number of places and do them really well. And there's a big question, I think, to be answered around Pride and Place, and I'm quite open-minded. I think in some places there is an opportunity to boost Pride and Place and to say, if you have a High Streets Commission working alongside Pride and Place, you get a really strong bang for your buck. I also think there's a really good opportunity to have an impact in places that don't have access to that £20 million. And so, that causes us to have to weave through that system a little bit. But I think that's a problem I welcome, because when there is investment going in like that, it's an opportunity for local councillors, local MPs, but more importantly, if you don't mind me saying, local people to shape what they want to see. And the High Streets Commission work ties in for me with things like our Small Venues Fund, the events funds, because when we think about events, people think about those big ticket things like, the football or the Mercuries. What I actually think about is things like, festivals and carnivals and biker and, and in the villages in County Durham, and how we support that community involvement. So I think I'm happy to say that we probably haven't made as much progress as I thought we would have at this point on high streets, but that's because I'm not interested in quick slapdash solutions, and we want to get it right and do it alongside people.
I'll just come back on that quickly, because it sounds like what you're saying, Kim, is that there is a recognition that there's a need to change strategy.
Yes.
And talking about focusing on fewer high streets, but
Yeah.
doing that in a bigger way, as you say. That change in strategy, is that something that's going to be published, and are there going to be ways for the local authorities to feed into that, and for councillors and residents to feed into that? Have we got a sense of a time frame on that?
Yeah, so in the coming weeks we'll be doing some work, and of course it'll be inclusive, so we'll want to have the views of local councillors, local people. The whole point in doing the commission that way was a combination of bringing together residents and experts, but we haven't chosen where we're going to focus on yet, with the exception of course of South Shields. So yeah, there'll be more to come. The fact is though that high streets are such a physical, visible embodiment of, of a local area, and people's, I think it really impacts the way people feel about their Pride and Place. And so it's really critical that we get this right, because I think we can prove a concept that is, if you actually bring together the high streets, capital funding for high streets, plus a bit of Pride and Place, as well as some business support, as well as some events, as well as some housing, and stop looking at these things in silos, that's when you can do something really quite transformational. So I kind of make no apology for the fact it's not been fast and loose, and actually I'd rather it was done properly and that we get it right over a period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hartley. I think that was an important element that we'll certainly be having in scrutiny over this year. I'm involved in one of the Pride and Place projects in my area. A little bit of it will cover the town centre, and for a number of years the frustration has been that we don't own the town centre the way residents think we do. In fact, my town centre, which is, I'll not mention which one it is, but it's Stanley.
Yeah, I was there the other day.
It's got international recognition now through social media about just how poor some of the elements are. There's a burned out pub that's been there forever, and the frustration of being able to tackle that, we need better powers to be able to purchase those ourselves. Absolutely. And make something of them. But we don't own the town centres like we thought we do, and that's something that Pride and Place might be able to start looking at, and it would be great to be able to coordinate the two.
I mean, Pride and Place is a brilliant step forward, and honestly, I was in Stanley the other day because obviously we're regenerating Stanley bus station. That's going to be really important for Stanley Town Centre. But I had a chat to some of the, I'm sorry we digress, but it's relevant. I had a chat to some of the shop holders there, and of course they're telling me their issues, and the rent's going up, it's expensive, we can't even park at the back of our own shop, the empty units cause antisocial behaviour and all that. And I said, is the council your landlord? And the guy I spoke to rolled his eyes and he went, no, it's private landlord, never even met him. And it's so true that we need to be able to get a grip on that. So, going to government and saying we need powers, not just for compulsory purchase, because actually councils do have an element of that and so do we, but I think compulsory sale orders would be really transformational, forcing them to sell shops that they're not looking after. And the idea that some of these shopping precincts are left to go to rack and ruin by people who've probably never even been there, slowly devaluing them so that the public get no benefit out of them, presumably just so eventually they can sell the land for something else. That is not how we care for our local areas, and it's absolutely maddening. But yeah, I want us to be really ambitious about this, because there are some incredible local retail businesses, some people with real ambition who want to be on the high street. And I don't think you'll very often find a resident who says, no, I don't want to see improvement in it. But it's a job of work to get it right, because, like you say, it's always much more complicated than it looks on the surface.
It certainly is, thank you. I've got Councillor Newman, then Dodd, then Stone next. So, Councillor Newman, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. You'll be pleased to know that most of the questions I had have been answered. But I just want to say that the annual report does highlight some strong progress compared to the missions that you've outlined. Somebody who grew up in poverty, the way we've tackled inequality has been absolutely fantastic, and it's something I look forward to seeing how it develops, and providing good jobs, especially in the green industry. I know we've mentioned public transport, and I just wanted to ask about what opportunities do you see emerging that we can take advantage of, and I'm thinking very specifically around the announcement of the DIP and the 15 million for defence, which could be a big boost to the regional economy, and I'm just wondering your thoughts on what opportunities we have.
So we are. There's only so much I can say on the DIP at the moment, but we are extremely hopeful that in the coming weeks, the Skynet procurement process is still out, and we know that if Lockheed Martin are successful with that, then they will bring thousands of jobs to County Durham. Net Park is secured. We've already invested alongside the council in readying that site, and I am pushing government every single week to make that decision, because I honestly think it would be really transformational for the region to build satellites here. And, with our advanced manufacturing background, it would be great for County Durham, great for the wider region, but that's all I know on it at the moment. But it does represent a really good opportunity. They've already invested millions of pounds in NEST, so in the North East Space Technology Centre. Is that right? North East Space Technology, NEST, down in Northumbria University, which is springing to life as we speak, to prepare people for the skills that would be required to work in space technologies. So that's absolutely massive for us. And as I've already said, kind of building out that capability, particularly in offshore wind, but in battery technology, data centres and various other, there's a lot of opportunity coming down the pipeline. When it comes to public transport, for me, keeping those fares low is absolutely critical. We have seen an increase in bus usership. Even at a time when those services aren't up to scratch, we're seeing an increase in bus usership, and we know that's directly linked to capped fares. And then taking that across now to the metro to provide that parity, again, it's such an important step for us, because if I thought the metro was too expensive, it was too expensive. We're doing it on PopCard because that helps us with our transition, and as we move forward, we'll see more integration, we'll see Pop coming onto an app on your phone, on your iPhone, and then eventually we'll see just tap on, tap off. But we have to go through those processes to get there. It improves, and it's getting better and better and better all the time. And now we're into the second month, which I think is important to say, of metro reliability being above 90%. So that's an impact of a whole host of changes, but also the new trains. Okay.
Councillor Dodd.
Yeah, an old one, but a new one.
An oldie but a goodie.
When I was young, I'm going back 1980, when I was driving or hauling my own sheep into Newcastle, Tyneside Mart, which is where B&Q was at Bladen. There was a huge path, swathe kept for the A1. Great, fantastic. And it started about then. And I had to deliver a car to Team Valley the other day. And what a dreadful situation it still is after 46 years. Driving round what I'd call the metro centre, it just grinds to a halt. And I probably understand that 40, 50 years ago when they planned that, the traffic was never ever going to get to this stage that we're at now. And we've mentioned the A1, and it's been a football, you will know that, for a long time, with many political parties promising and doing a bit, but never getting there. I just hope we get this A1 correct, because going from the Angel of the North to, say, B&Q area or the Tyne Bridge, it just comes to a nasty halt, and you're stuck there for 10, 20 minutes, and it's never changed in my lifetime, and I'm now heading for retirement. And I just wonder if we ever get to a point where we're going to say this is our main trunk road and we're going to do something positive, because it's been worked on all the time, but nothing's really changed. And and I know Martin Gannon quite well. Is this Leamside line still on the books, or is that, because that seemed to suck every penny we had, £1 billion, and I know from Northumberland's experience with a train line, you know, ours started at 60 million and ended up at 400 million. And I just wonder if is it still a vanity project, or is that not? Thank you. Sorry to be.
Thank you. Agree on the roads, and it's not devolved. And that's the frustration, is that for that major road network, it's still just pressure on government all the time. We had National Highways in yesterday. They got absolute clarity on our views on what needs to happen across the region, and the dualling of the A1 north of Felton is north of Morpeth is absolutely critical. Railways. Yeah, the Leamside line is still absolutely on the table, and it's part of the Northern Powerhouse Rail, which is something we absolutely battled for when there were recent announcements about what would be happening across rail in the north. That commitment at the moment is to development of the business case, because that's actually, believe it or not, as long as people have been campaigning for the Leamside line to run into County Durham, that's not been done. That proper business case has not been done. So that's the first stage in this. But we believe we can get a railway delivered there quicker than, for example, some of the promised links across Manchester and Liverpool and Yorkshire. And I think government recognise that. We are committed to delivering the metro to Washington. That money is set aside. The work will happen. It is underway as we speak for the business case completion. And yeah, we expect that the Leamside line will happen. I don't believe it is a vanity project. I think it's about opening up growth corridors through County Durham, just in the same way as the Northumberland line is done in Northumberland. I think you're on over 2 million journeys on the Northumberland line. We are having to get extra carriages, which is a bigger battle than it should be, to service that route, because it's so busy at peak times. And I think that's a great problem to have, you know, and Glenn has been really clear, and I completely agree that the next phase has to be to do again the business case to extend it to Newbiggin, because what we need in the region is more rail and not less. And personally, I think we should have more local control over it as well, because every rail project is still a battle with central government. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. I've got Dodd, then Stone, then Flowers, then Boron, then Cox. So we do have lots of interest in asking you questions. Sorry? Councillor Dodd. Councillor Stone, it's you next, sorry.
Is that?
Yeah, again? No? Yes.
Great, thank you. First point, and I shall fill in my form with Michael afterwards. I have this problem on Newcastle as well. Every time Northumbria and Nest comes up, I have to declare an interest, because that's part of my day job. But thanks for the plug on that one. On the overall report, I might have said this to Henry in the past at North of Tyne. I have seen a lot of sort of summary reports and graphics, and I get why we do that. So yes, important part of the sales pitch and part of the story that we want to communicate, and clearly the comments so far today have been part of that as well. But obviously our job is scrutiny as well, to look into and drill into the detail on some of this stuff. What I particularly wanted to get onto, you brought up the bus reform and your consultation on that at the start of the process. And I just wanted to sort of ask your views on how you see that going, particularly in terms of the financial viability of that, because I know that this is a live issue, not just here in this region, but in Manchester as well, in terms of can we do this with our own resources, with our own revenue, or will it need further funding from government to support that? I am conscious that, I absolutely get the need for some degree of change on the bus system. I can see that on the bus routes that I use on the Coast Road corridor, there's a regular service and a lot of passengers using that corridor. It's important to have a integrated and a structure to do franchising or to do corridors on those key routes is important. But I can also see that in some of the rural parts of the northeast, there's going to be much less passenger numbers, though it's very economically and socially economically important that there's transport connections for those areas. But the economics and the viability of those two different sorts of parts of the region are very different, and how you join all those up is going to be important. So it was just to ask for you, in terms of the consultation process, will there be more information about what you see the business model for this being? Because that is where I still have some sort of question marks, really, and I think as Scrutiny, that's our job to ask some questions about it. Given that there would need to be a clear financial model behind this, and given that, going back to previous cabinet reports, the nexus is on future financial position, again, there's some question marks on that. What assurances can you give us as Mayor that you think this is going to be financially deliverable?
So the stage before consultation was the audit process to establish exactly that, and that went to Cabinet in March, which allowed us to then go to the consultation process without effectively a proper audit that says, yes, this is financially viable and externally verified as financially viable. We wouldn't be able to progress to the next steps. So we know that a franchise model in the region, as assessed by external auditors, has financial viability. And that's obviously looking at a combination of ambition around additional rural services and the level of subsidy that we receive from government now, plus also some of the things that might be unforeseen costs within the model. The benefit of doing it now, look, I get people saying to me all the time, oh, Manchester have already got this. Manchester had a mayor for 9 years, and it took him 8 years to get bus franchising because it was a lengthy legal process, and it will probably take us just over 4 years to get it in place. The benefit of doing it now is that we have got absolutely tons of learning from previous places that have done it, including on things like the cost modelling, on things like the depots, on things like the pitfalls, the legals, and all of that kind of stuff. And all of that has been absorbed working with the team at GM and various other combined authorities to look at what they've learned along their way. But we are absolutely assured by that audit process that it's a financially viable model and that it will be a better model than we've got at the moment. The thing I keep going back to is we can't do nothing. The state of our buses is just not viable. It is not acceptable. It is not what people in this region deserve. It has to change. More people travel by bus than any other form of public transport put together combined in this region. We've got some of the lowest level of car ownership anywhere in the country. We have got to improve this. I always go back to last year. In the local election campaign in County Durham, I went to a village, Witton-le-Weir. Does anyone represent that part? No. So I went to Witton-le-Weir, beautiful village, quite a sizable village, and there's a big church, bus stop outside the church. And I went over to have a look because I'm always thinking about, nearly swore there, so nearly said bloody buses. I'm always thinking about buses. And I went over to have a look, and do you know what? There's a bus timetable, school bus, absolutely nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. That village of over a couple of thousand people, not a single solitary bus service coming through it. That is not a tenable situation for us, so it has to change. The bus companies are taking more public subsidy than they've ever had before. Those are going to private shareholders. Some of them are making 10, 15% profit off the back of public money. and what they are delivering is a service that does not deliver for the people of the region. So we have to do something different. So I'm assured by the audit process that the financial modelling will work. Obviously, there's more work to do. It's still got a couple of years to run before we get there. Public consultation is critical. We are focused on improving in the rural areas because with the best will in the world, we do need to improve the urban areas. But it's places like Consett, like Whitnall, like rural Northumberland that I hear the most from people saying either the one bus or the 2 buses a day just don't turn up, or they haven't got one at all. And so, whilst you might on Shields Road or, on Gosforth High Street be able to get a bus every 5 minutes, some people, if they miss their bus, it's the following day. So something has to change. I'm assured there's financial viability. We've got a lot of learning from other places, but we can't just accept the status quo. Thank you.
Do you mind if I just briefly respond to the point that Councillor Stone made about the performance pack and the materials? It's fine. It's just to say, yes, this is a headline report. You would expect us to do that because obviously we need to make sure that we have regard to proper transparency at the end of the financial year, etc., etc. But if we published a 400-page report with all of our performance data, nobody would read it. So, but that said, it is absolutely a viable question to us. Have a think as a committee. What do you want to dig into the detail of? We'll be completely open about that. We'll bring the right officials to do that. Think about that in relation to the calendar for this year for ONS, and we'll happily come back with detail on the areas that you want to look at the most.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Stone. I've got Councillor Flowers next. I'll bring you in.
Thank you very much. I was really thrilled to hear the Mayor. I was overjoyed to hear her say that the views of the local community was paramount and consultation was paramount. Northumberland Council are going to put a new cycle path through the village of Seaton Sluice. Nobody, and I mean nobody in the village wants it. They already have a cycle path which is perfectly adequate. They see no reason to spend millions of pounds putting a new one through. And when I spoke to the designer of the new scheme, he said that part of his remit was to make it harder for cars to travel down through the village and make them slower by taking out the pull-in bus stops so that the buses had to stop in the road and hold the traffic up. Now, nobody wants it. We have not had a single opportunity to stop it. How can we stop it?
Seems like a question for Northumberland Council.
Well, I mean, it's like, they're putting solar panels on perfectly good farmland. Are you really listening to the people?
It sounds like a question for Northumberland Council.
Okay, thanks for not answering.
Well, I don't have control over those things. Yeah. Not really.
Oh, okay. We've got a meeting tomorrow. See you all right.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Burrowan.
All right, yeah. Is it on now? Can you hear us? Hi, Kim. It's Councillor Bourne, Durham County Council. Long time no see. Transport consultations. What are we doing with that? Are we giving papers out and leaflets out, or have we thought about putting it on the transport apps we have with the partners? Maybe fill the consultation, the survey in them on that app. Well, because there's quite a few residents use that app. Possibly we could integrate it with the partners we have on that transport app. Also, my question also is about the obviously the Limestone line itself is in my area, which hopefully it's going to progress. And the metro line at Washington, are we progressing on time on these dates? When's the dates? Is the metro line at Washington going to be earlier or than the Limestone line, or vice versa? Also, I work with Police Commissioner Joy Allen a lot in Durham, and we are pushing the Safer Street Fund at the moment, the government implemented about keeping women safe. Mm-hmm. Are we thinking about this authority as well, maybe funding this as well?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry for the many questions.
No, they're great questions. So I'll take them in order. So on the consultation, no, we're not just shoving it online, it is going wide. So there's over 30 consultation events in person. We'll be doing letter drops, so letters will go out to households to encourage people to take part. There'll be telephone calls. it's not every household, but a huge number of telephone calls will be made, and we will work as best we can with bus partners to ask them to encourage people to take part. Some of those bus operators might find it in their interest. They might consider it in their interest not to do that. I can't control that. However, what I would say is actually we do have a relatively good relationship with all of them, and they are supporting. They're supportive of wanting to see the outcomes of a need for improvement. So we're going to be sending it as wide as possible. But what I would ask is, local councillors in your local Facebook groups, in your local areas, asking people to fill that, to take part in that consultation. And quite often what we get from people is they go, well, I'm not filling that in because I don't use the bus. That's the whole point. Fill it in and tell me what will make you use the bus. Because we want people to feel like they can make that choice, and not just occasionally, but it's a viable option for them all the time. So as wide as possible. Honestly, if we've got too many, that's a good problem to have. Leamside line, it is progressing. It would be the Metro to Washington will be first. That is on time. It's on schedule. So what we'll see is a full business case delivered later this year. And we've already had various rounds of consultation. There'll be a lot more of that before a plan is published. And we expect the Metro to be delivered before around 2032. It's a big project. It's a long-term project. Leamside line, the first step is the business case. So we're working with government to secure the funding to be able to do that. I want to see that now. We've waited too long. And so at the moment, what I'm asking for is the money to say, right, what is the full business case? We've invested locally. I think around £8 million of local money's gone into doing that. We need some contribution from government. They've committed to that through the Northern Powerhouse Rail project. And so we'll keep pushing them to deliver it. And then the third thing was women's safety. I'm so passionate about this. And, if you survey women, women and girls, which we have done, they will tell you that the three places that they feel the least safe are on the public transport system at night, in public parks at night, and in the nighttime economy. And so taking direct action on the public transport and the public realm are things that we can do. And so, as you said, working with police and crime commissioners, making sure that we're not just making little changes here and there to things like the bus system and the metro system, but actually, listening to what women tell us they want to see and adapting to that. So it is things that you would expect, control of vegetation, things like lighting, things like CCTV, things like more staffing in key places at key times. And so all of that is something we're investing in. We had a big consultation on women's safety. We had a number of consultation events. Lots and lots and lots of women have taken part. And we'll be publishing a plan for women's safety in the coming weeks. So, yeah, it's absolutely necessary. And do you know what? And I'm going to say it. I get a lot online. When I talk about women's safety, I get a lot going, what about men? What about boys? What about other people? Why is it all about women? Why is it all about women? If you make it safer for women, you make it safer for everybody. The difference is, I don't know any men who walk around holding their keys in their hand, worrying about whether they should get the bus or whether they should get the metro, whether they should get a taxi or whether it's safer to walk, or just making the decision to not go out. So, I think if we're seeing that, we should be challenging it because it is a real concern for 50% of the population. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm also pushing that to be disability thing as well.
Absolutely.
Whenever we're in trouble as well, especially with kids with autism and all that sort of thing as well.
Completely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Councillor Cox.
Thanks, Chair. Kim, it's always good to hear you come along, and you're always giving the enthusiasm for the region and the determination to see things delivered. So, along with that, continue. But we did agree just at the end of the last municipal year, as part of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, to set up a subgroup to look at the Child Poverty Intervention Fund. We just got started and then the elections came along, so it's changed. So I'm hoping that we'll still be able to do that, because I think it's a vital part of the work that you've been mentioning, and it's good to hear that, even in just 2 years, the action that's already been taken and the work that's being set up and is going to move ahead, I'm sure. So I'd like to say that we're still going to be able to do that deep dive into things and get a lot more detail about how it's going to affect everybody across the region. So that would be my first point, is that this is going to continue, obviously, and develop over the next 2 or 3 years, hopefully. with regard to the transport issue, I'd be surprised if you don't get a lot of feedback on this, because it's certainly something I get a lot of feedback from residents. Notably saying there's no buses after 6 o'clock. If they miss that one bus, like you just mentioned, it's not quite as bad where I live in North Tyneside, but there's still buses are once an hour, and to try and get to a hospital in once an hour for an appointment, you're either very early or you miss it. So, you know, it's important that we get that. And I think a lot of people have sort of forgotten what it was like when we had the integrated transport system. We were incredibly lucky here in North Tyneside, in the northeast, Newcastle area, Sunderland, where we've got, you know, all the buses interlinked and linked with the metro. And now we've got the airport, they can interlink with the airport. And that was just so much better than this. You know, I've seen figures where the bus company is making more money and delivering less miles, and they're just making vast sums of profit out of it, basically, and people have forgotten what it was like to have a proper integrated transport network for everybody. So they would be my points to encourage.
I'm pretty determined to show them what it feels like again, because that's the minimal that people deserve. I really do think that. I think your question on a child poverty subcommittee is probably one for the chair, actually, but I would encourage it. We proactively want that input and that scrutiny and that, you know, the results and the outcomes. Everything we're doing on child poverty is being evaluated, because we need to know the benefit of the input that we're making. We've unapologetically taken economic development money to spend on child poverty because we know that it is a long-term economic problem, and so measuring its success is really, really important, as is saying that's not working, stop doing it, do something else. And I think quite often in the public sector as elected officials, you know, you can get some trouble for doing that. You know, people say, well, you know, it's a U-turn, it's this, it's that, it's bad decision making. It's not at all. To say we're going to do something, try it, if it doesn't work, move on, do something else, is a position of strength for us as a region. So we will be as open, if that committee is stood up, we'll be as open as possible. We'll give you everything that you need and access to see the work that we're doing, because it's honestly completely welcome. And your point on buses, absolutely. I hear it all the time. Buses don't run late enough. If you're a shift worker, it's an absolute nightmare. Even if you're coming home from quite often a retail job, if the bus doesn't run late enough, you know, like you say, hospital appointments, thankfully, are now much more often over a longer period of time in the day than ever they were before, and having people have access to the bus service to be able to do that. And, you know, and I don't mind saying it, the nighttime economy will be better off as well if we have buses running later. We hear all the time about pubs and hospitality really struggling. If someone can't get a bus to the pub, then that is not good for that business. And so it's a whole host of reasons why we need to sort this out. And once again, I would urge people to promote and take part in the consultation. And that will be the drum that I will be banging for the next few weeks. Thank you.
Chair, if I could just add one more. I'm not sure whether I'm the only one left now in the committee who volunteered for that subgroup, but I'm sure you've made the point there that hopefully we'll be able to rerun that. But the child poverty, it's so vital. It's not just a loss for the individual children and the family. It's for the whole region as well. It's a wasted life for them and a wasted opportunity for the region. So it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned, what you're doing with that. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. I think you know what the next item on the agenda is, which is the programme of work, and we will be moving on to that. I do have a number of write-in questions that came in later.
Do you want me to I'll just check through this list and make sure that because I think people have asked all of their questions.
Yeah, there's a few that came later that have been asked in the meeting. Not everybody's been here. I know I've seen your hands, yeah. I just wanted to put it out there that if people have extra questions, can we send them by email just aware of the agenda and the timeline?
Of course, we'll always answer. We don't have to be in front of a scrutiny committee to answer your questions. Anytime.
I'll take one last question from the back because he seems to have got a photograph he wants to show as well. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. At the last meeting in Washington with Nexus refused to enter any conversation about problems which may arise on the line. The line to Washington will not benefit the residents at Washington. It's in the wrong place for the residents. There's problems at South Hilton, There's only one road into South Hilton across the level crossing. If that crossing is blocked, you need a second access road. The next problem, apart from the residences, is you've got 6 lanes of the A19 to tunnel under. Again, no response. Washington Station, which is presumably one of the first stops, it's not big enough for a station. The second station is probably in the Usworth Station area, which the fire station's been built on top of. So there's got to be a new location for that. That's probably for Nissan. The third station is at Follinsby, which we presume is for Amazon. But nowhere in the information that the residents of Washington's been provided with will indicate how the passengers, if they want to use the metro, can get to a station. And we were given 5 minutes at the end of a 2-hour meeting with Nexus, and not one question was answered. So, could we have a full review of proposals, please?
Yeah, so it's obviously part of a lengthy process of consultation, and I think some of the questions that you're asking about things like the road in and out of South Hilton are exactly the questions that I'm asking Nexus, and I'm assured that solutions will be brought for both the public and to satisfy us that the project is viable. Then there is going to be a much fuller consultation period in September, which will look at things like the venues along the route, including some of those more tricky engineering feats that need to be managed, as well as things like station access and road access in and out of South Hilton. So we'll invite you to take part in that, and I'll make sure that is a consultation where questions are answered.
As long as the questions can be answered and not brushed under the carpet.
But I think it's really important to say that nobody is blind to the concerns and to some of the potential challenges of a project like this. It's absolutely, there always are things like that to overcome, and they're absolutely fair questions, but I think probably it'll be too early in the process for them to give you the full answers you require, but as we move towards September, they'll be in a better position to do that.
It was really the attitude of Nexus at the last meeting. Everybody that came out was disgruntled. They said it was a whitewash.
Well, that shouldn't happen, and I'm sorry that was the experience, and we'll take that back to Nexus and make sure that it won't be the experience in September.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for the question. Thank you, Mayor. I will be closing the questions there with just one final question from yourself, because it leads into the next item on the agenda.
Prerogative.
It was in regards to the Devolution Act itself, and the 9 areas of competence, I think it was. Will that be leading to a further 4 missions, or will they be integrated into the existing 5?
They'll be integrated into the missions that we've already set. That's the plan that we've agreed cross-party across the region and that we're delivering, and we'll make sure that we do the kind of the national government measures in that way. I'm going to be really honest about this, and I think it's really important that those measurements from government, we'll absolutely do them, we'll fulfil them, we will exceed the expectations that government have of us, but I'm not really that bothered about what government think of us. It's about what the people out there think of us. So I'm much more interested in the priorities that essentially people voted for. I'm much more interested in the priorities that come through those Mayor Meets events where we talk to people. I'm much more interested in the priorities that we know will make the region move forward than what government set through us for us through kind of an integrated settlement framework. So we'll do that, we'll integrate them into the missions, but the things that I'm interested in are what people want and care about locally and how we make a difference to their lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We did have recommendations on here that we examine the report in full and ask questions of the Mayor and the Chief Executive. Thank you very much for your engagement. You've certainly done that. And the key to this was that we identify issues or topics for inclusion in the future work programme. So I believe we've done that. Can we agree that that's been covered? Yeah. Again, if you have any further questions, send them in. We'll now move on to item 6, the work programme. Has everyone had a chance to go through that?
Do you want me to say a few words?
Yes, please. I'd like to hand you over to Michael, who's going to say.
just
few words of introduction.
Just a few words by way of introduction to this. So you have presented to you this morning an outline work programme, which has been very much based on work previously undertaken by the committee, by a number of suggestions put forward by officers, the different directorates, and also a number of suggestions made at the induction session that we had last month. Again, just to emphasise, this is an outline work programme, an opportunity for members to consider that today, to raise any further issues that you may wish to include in the work programme, and also just to emphasise that the recommendations are that the work programme be brought back to the committee at each meeting to give all members an opportunity to review and revise the work programme as necessary, and also a request to authorise the chair and vice chair to similarly review and revise the work programme continuously in consultation with the authorities directorate team.
Thank you. Before I hand it over to yourselves to raise any specific issues, I just wanted to give you some feedback from my point of view on making programmes of work. I've looked across all the different areas, A, B, C, D, E and F, and the potential exercises, working groups and other activity. And there's a lot of individual elements within NEMSA that we look at, but I'm worried that we look at individual topics in isolation. We'll inevitably leave significant areas unscrutinised. And given that we now have a corporate plan, we have the outcomes framework and performance management framework, I'd prefer us to organise the scrutiny around the 5 missions, and then we'd be able to ask, are the missions delivering the outcomes we expected within budget and making the changes we wanted to see for our communities? And then alongside that, we also have what we've been talking about, questions at the previous agenda item, areas that are separate strands for cross-cutting enablers, such as the bus reform, transport integration, performance reporting, particularly the SMART objectives thing, and being able to communicate delivery of outcomes in a way that's legible for residents, so we're speaking the same language when it comes to output as well. Those are areas that give us the indicators to show are we doing well, what does good look like, and what was the goal that we were trying to achieve, that sort of thing. So that's where I would like to do it, rather than just having certain specific elements that we look at and leave a lot. Because if you're just going to look at one thing for 6 months, then another little bit for 6 months, we should be looking at the whole plan and saying, is the plan still delivering? Is it hitting those KPIs and the outcomes we expected? So I'd rather frame it like that and make sure that we know that if we're looking at a specific area, we know exactly what mission that's that underpins. Does that make sense? It just gives me a help when I put together a year in advance. And I'll take points from yourselves now. Councillor Newman.
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from what you're saying there about trying to scrutinise the missions and trying to keep us organised in that way. Looking through the work programme, if we look at a North East we're proud to call home, I'm wondering whether there's an opportunity to scrutinise the brownfield and housing developments. That's something that crosses every single borough from Northumberland right through North Tyneside down to Sunderland. And it's also a key mission of the North East Combined Authority. So I think there could be some real benefit of scrutinising that element. Went through the work programme, I couldn't quite see it in the work programme, so I would like to suggest that we look at that area as well.
Our options are the new light building or the other place at Akeley Heads. The story was mentioned, yeah, I'm not sure yet. But we'll hopefully have something by next week to tell you.
That's on. Right. Sorry. It was mentioned earlier in the presentation, which is probably why it wasn't in the work programme that we discussed previously, is the careers support. I think careers support it just has such an impact on pretty much everybody's lives, because everybody goes through schooling and then decides on careers, and which university, which career to go into, which university course for which career, what training to get. It's just so vitally important that you get that right. And I may have missed it, but I don't think it was brought up as being something new, and I'd quite like to cover that, and especially with the problem that we have in the northeast with NEETs and the problems that then happen further down the line. If it would stop them at careers, it would be a real positive. Thank you.
Thank you. That is one of the key elements of one of the missions, I believe. Councillor Welsh next.
Just picking up on Councillor Newman's point about housing development. Obviously, development at scale like we need requires collaboration of partners, not just the constituents authorities and the combined authority. So could I suggest in any agenda item looking at that we perhaps invite partners like Homes England or whoever else we're working with to join committee, so we can get an appreciation in the round. Looking at the potential exercises that have been identified in Part D, there's a couple of, there's a bit of a Venn diagram of a few points. We've got the retention of skills in the region. There was a suggestion that committee may want to explore opportunities to work collaboratively with local universities to develop and retain talent in the region. And picking up on the point that one of the members raised earlier in the meeting, there was a concern that there was potentially a brain drain where we were losing the brightest and the best. And I'm just wondering whether we look to have a report that's evidence-based, on where we're at now. Is there a brain drain? Are we losing some of our brightest and best talent? Or are there sufficient opportunities and reasons for them to stay in the northeast? Because I think that will be really telling on measuring the success of the missions that we have. And then it might be an idea to look at high streets. We've mentioned that in this mission.
Yeah, that's why I thought we'd look at the missions, because those things, we're not leaving anything out there necessarily. If we can get an overarching report on the elements of those activities, because there is a corporate plan that's for delivery of those aspects, so we can look at those in a combined way, so we don't.
Actually, it's already on the agenda at the bottom anyway.
It is listed. I like that idea about the looking at the brain drain in particular, because there's a lot of data already available from universities. They know where the students come from, and do they go back home? Can we poach them here? That's obviously a great idea. The ones who are from the local area who do get educated in our universities here, are they leaving to find work? How can we keep them here? That's an excellent way of building employment, is to keep the skills as well, to attract businesses to operate here. I've got Councillor Dodd next.
Thank you very much. It touches on your last point. In Northumberland, we are having a massive amount of house building, but they're all 4-bedroom detached houses, which sort of suck in people who are retiring from the south and want to come up to Northumberland and buy a place cheaper. What the area needs, particularly for young people, are sort of 2-bedroom semis. It appeals to the widest amount of people just starting out, young families just starting a family, older people who are scaling down. Why aren't we building massive estates of 2-3-bedroom semi-detached, rather than these 4-bedroom detached houses which are springing up everywhere?
Henry, I'll bring you in.
Can I just make a suggestion, Chair, which is picking up on the point that Councillor Welsh made. We've had in previous guises sessions on housing and new house building, pace of delivery before, but as you said, getting that done anywhere with the right tenure mix and type and for the right people is a collaboration, isn't it? We will support that work. It requires local authority, both planning and delivery. You need Homes England in the mix. We have a social housing partnership in the region that we could bring into the conversation, and indeed the private sector as well. So it would be worth, I think, doing that in the round as has been suggested. Otherwise, what the risk is that we have a conversation about things that really are about local planning, that we, and you've got me sitting there going, well, that's a matter for the local authority, and it's not a productive discussion. So actually trying to do that in the round might be a good idea. And then on the point that's been raised about skills, careers, and if I could just say two things. So timing is really important on that. So you may have noticed that Alan Milburn of these parts has been asked by government to do a review on NEETs and why there's such a big NEET problem in the country, which is kind of well trodden, but the numbers are pretty staggering. Part 1 of that report has been published. Part 2, which is what is proposed to do about it, will come in September, October time, I understand. And our response around careers and employment support will inevitably have to be influenced by that as well. So in timing terms, I'd suggest if we're going to do that human capital meeting where we look at that in the round, we do that towards the end of the year, if that's okay, because then we can take stock of what changing government policy might look like as well.
Thank you. That's a good suggestion. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Henry. I mean, I'm particularly keen to scrutinise and to look at what the mayor and the authority are going to do on NEETs. I think that is a very important issue, and I know that the mayor has made some pronouncements on that. She's gone now, so I can't ask her directly, but I'm sure Henry will relay that back to her, that we would very much like to hear what the mayor's plans are on that, because there is a big issue here. We've raised this at Newcastle Scrutiny previously, and one of my colleagues is not on this committee now, but Councillor Lambert did some very good work on that, which I think has got to Alan Miller's attention, and we look forward to seeing how that can be filtered through in terms of the wider regional policy environment. But it's clearly a very big issue, and we would very much like to see some progress, and we look forward with interest to hearing what the Mayor's going to plan to do to take that forward. So I'm sure Henry will feed that back to Kim in due course. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That is a massive one to coordinate. One of the things I've an issue with in my local area is car parking. Even people who have garages, they've all been converted to either a granny flat or a home working office. So they're parking on the street, exacerbating the on-street parking issues. So those are things that never get talked about in design of houses either. But then there's so many different people who have an influence on it, whether it's a national planning policy framework, your local authorities, demands and things like that. It's a lot of overlapping things that we'll have to consider. So we'll try and get some representatives from those areas into it. I've got Councillor Heathcote next, and then I'll bring in you, Councillor Hartley.
Thank you, Chair. It's just in relation to Mission 2 and the home of the green energy. Within the corporate plan, there's mention of a £1 billion heat network being developed. I think I'd like to really understand what that's going to be and the area that's going to service, and where the investment for that is coming from. And also, we've got this AI growth plan. Sorry. And there's been talk of data centres this morning, and data centres require a huge amount of energy, gigawatts of energy. Where is that going to come from, and is that going to be provided in a local network where we're using locally generated energy from offshore and supplemented by grid connection in order to drive these AI data centres? Because the cost of energy, unless it's locally sourced on a private network, is subject to the variations of the market, and you have no control of that. So how do you bring somebody inward investment into the northeast on the basis of green energy supply when actually it's grid connected? And how do you, and is there a plan for, you know, local infrastructure to be able to power data centers? And what would that look like?
I'd suggest, Chair, if we're in the business of identifying topics to go into in a bit more depth, that is a good one, and your view on whether you combine kind of energy and power in the round and do it like that, or whether you have something separate on the AI growth zone and what that means and what that could mean. Completely open to that. What I would say, just, you know, off the bat of your question, that is a good question. It's the whole 9 yards on AI, and it's a national issue about whether, if we want sovereign AI and lots of data centres and the ability to produce the capacity, as is being done stateside, let's say, you need both the power and you also need the availability of grid connections to do it. Now, that's similar to lots of other industries like the auto industry as well. And we're fighting that battle alongside everybody else in the UK at the moment. So yes, we have really clear plans. You can see that in the AI growth zone prospectus. We know the outcomes that we want to hit, but getting there, as with a lot of other things, is going to require a push and pull between ourselves and national government that obviously we haven't fully worked through yet. So it's a good one to dig into, and I think we'd welcome the pre-decision scrutiny on some of that as well.
It's almost as if you've got to go back in time, you know, to when, you know, electricity networks were rolled out and they were on a local basis. And if you lived in a certain block of New York or whatever, you were powered by that power station and you paid them. And it seems like because of the policies of national government and, you know, franchising and all those broad stroke energy policies, we've found ourselves in a position where we're wholly uncompetitive.
But people seem to think the mayor is all powerful, but going back in time is not one of her abilities, I'm afraid.
Councillor Hartley.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I was just reflecting on some of the discussions around the challenges for people not in education or employment or training, and this recognising that as a mayoral authority, the focus can end up being on some of the big ticket items, the big projects, and we can lose sight of, is this benefiting people in our poorest communities, most vulnerable people? And I appreciate the subgroup that was set up for the Child Poverty Action Plan. Is there merit in a subgroup that's focused on economic inactivity more broadly, taking in these issues around how we help people into education and training, and also I'd say the high streets work is part of that as well, because that's really thinking about our communities and making sure communities aren't missing out in the work that the mayoral authority is doing. So I don't know whether that's for now in this work programme discussion, or I'm just putting that out there, being aware that I'm a substitute, so I might not be back to make that point, but I'd be happy to be part of any working group on economic inactivity if that's to be considered.
Thank you. Yeah, there was one pre-existing work group, which was the child poverty one. Have we only got one person who was on that?
If I could, obviously the last year's committee set it up as they had it as a priority. I understand membership's changed now, and I believe I'm the last one who volunteered for that particular stream of work. But listening to the debate now, I'm not sure. One of the problems there, we only had the opportunity to meet once. In the time scales, we only meet 6 times in 2-hour meetings, and we've got about 20 good ideas here so far. And we're kind of, well, in my view, I don't think we can monitor everything that the combined authority does at a depth that's going to make a difference when we're trying to do all these things, and it's and everybody's got different views, some of which I'm just looking at the list actually on here. These are extras on top of what's already been identified or potential streams. So I'm not sure, one, what's happening to the previous policy, the poverty action programme, but 2, how are we going to actually do this work? Because we're going to have to set up multiple subgroups, I would imagine, if we want to tackle all these specifics. It's so just some clarity on both of those points would be good, I think.
we do have the power between ourselves to agree to establish a work group or a task and finish group to look at one particular subject more in depth and ask more detailed questions. It's just a case of working out the composition. How many people do you want to have on the group? Do you want just 2 people, or do you want to try and make it proportionally representative? If it's non-voting, that doesn't really matter necessarily. If you're just going to be reporting back to this committee. But yeah, there's value in looking at one particular subject more in depth rather than having to take turns of questions around the table. Being able to come up with a list of questions, put them through and get responses to be able to feed back to us is certainly, there's absolutely
I realise
a lot of value in doing it like that.
It's a big task we've been given to scrutinise the mayoral authority, but it's just to see where we're going with that. It's happy to volunteer for things, but
no one's said anything. No one spoke against having the continuation of that working group. So it's now a case of seeing people put their hands up, knowing that they might very well be volunteering to be part of it as well.
Very possible. That would be a bit,
Just out of interest, do people support the idea that we have that work group?
Great.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we have any volunteers to be on it?
Could I make a suggestion? Could I suggest that you write out to all members, including substitutes, asking for expressions of interest for being on the working group? I think it's a really important subject area, and it's one that is worth people's time and effort. But I would really like substitute members to also have the opportunity to get involved in it so that they're engaged with the committee.
It's a fair ask. Yeah, we can do an EOI.
Thank you.
I'll do that with Michael. He can send that round. Is that?
The mayor.
Yeah, I've got Councillor Flowers because he's been waiting very patiently, and then I'll bring you back in.
I just wanted a very small point about the data centres. They do suck in a massive amount of energy, and we need to ensure that, if energy becomes a bit short, they don't take priority over everybody else. But secondly, they give off a massive amount of energy, and it's free energy because it's already been used, so to speak. The amount of heat that they give out, we could have massive, district heating systems with practically free energy if we get in now while they're being built. Okay.
Are there any other items that have for consideration that haven't been brought up yet that anybody's particularly interested in? Yeah, go ahead. Councillor Wildhead.
Councillor Wildhead, South Tyneside. Yeah, I would like to see something on the agenda regarding municipal asset commercialisation and park monetisation. I'm not asking the authority to cut the grass here, but I think, a lot of these funds involve spending vast amounts of money on new initiatives and new things, building new things. And I think we could be looking at some of the assets that we already have and commercialising them and providing opportunities for, smaller businesses and things like that to utilise spaces that the council already owns. They're just often lying there in disrepute, attracting graffiti and things like that. Parks are just being used for dog walkers and, for youths on bikes and things like that. So I'm just wondering how we could maybe work that into the agenda to see how we could best utilise some of the assets that we already have.
I like that suggestion, yeah, thank you. We'll take a note of that. So,
not power function.
Within the Combined Authority Scrutiny Committee's remit. Parks and those sort of assets are within the remit of the local authorities, and it's is that
we
correct?
don't own the assets, but we might have an interest in improving it. We don't own the town centres either, but there we go, talking about improving them.
I think we might be prudent to check whether it's within our remit.
I understand that, but I would have thought maybe there could be something earmarked in one of the existing funds to kind of have the opportunity for different councils to sort of draw down on a pot of money to sort of help regenerate parks and things like that in the region.
Henry?
Just a suggestion, Chair. Trying to think on my feet here slightly, but we've already got an item on high streets on the agenda, and actually quite effective use of public sector assets or their commercialisation or the way in which that is supported. You would expect absolutely to be part of joined up thinking about the future of high streets, so it may be that where that is relevant, that could be touched on within that item. As has been said, at the moment the Combined Authority doesn't have a programme as such in that space, because it is the remit of local authorities typically, well, almost certainly. That might be something to talk to your leader and cabinet about, you know, if that's a thing that you would like them to suggest in terms of the political dialogue that goes on to set the agenda of the Combined Authority. I think that's probably the route, but I'm not sure what we would be saying back to you as an officer team that would be of value to you if you put that item on the table now. That's not to say it's not completely important, it is, but I think as things stand, you'd have a better conversation working that through in a slightly different way. Just a view, Chair.
Thank you.
I didn't pick it up in the devolution of one of those areas of competence, but you never know if there's funding available. People will be interested in it.
Funny how competence follows the money, isn't it?
Yeah. Councillor Heathcote, you had your hand up before.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just wondering if, with regards to energy, if it'd be worth creating a subgroup for that, because the topic is a large one, and it runs through. It really runs through all of the missions in one way or another, and will be worthwhile, you know, a handful of people just looking at it, so that when we do come to bring it to scrutiny, a lot of the pre-work has been done, and so that it's effective when presented, because there's so many parts to it, and what the strategic authority is trying to achieve within that might be worthwhile weeding out a little bit, and really getting to the importance of what we're trying to achieve from scrutiny.
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure what people think about that. I usually prefer them to come to, like, we hear a report at scrutiny first, and then agree what the terms of reference would be for the working group if they're going to look at it like that way. Would you be all right with that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just because we obviously the scrutiny meetings only last for 2 hours, and I think energy is such a massive topic that there's probably a lot of work that could be done behind the scenes on that, within terms of reference, obviously, in order to be ensure effective scrutiny of it.
There's value in that, definitely. Any further items?
Take that away and bring a revised report.
I'll take that away, yeah, because I like to organise them under the missions, and so we can see how it works together and group them like that. Right, thank you very much. If that's everything for that item on the agenda, we'll get everything. When will we be ready to present something?
At the next meeting.
At the next meeting.
Programme, yeah.
Sure. Right. Great. In that case, date and time of next meeting's already been set. Is everybody going to be able to attend? I'll get you the exact coordinates as soon as I can guarantee it. We've decommissioned the main building early, but we do have various sites. So as soon as I know, I'll let you all know. But it is Durham City site. I think so.
Okay.
Right. Thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance, and safe journey homes, everyone.